The Monday, August 7th, 2023 Juvenile Detention Center Board meeting will come to order. Ms. Todd, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mayor Joe Carr.
Here.
Judge Steve Daniel. Here. Ms. Claire Maxwell. Here. Dr. Michael McDonald. Here. Director Bill Cope.
Here.
Dr. Anita Herron. Here. Mr. Chris Johnson.
Here. We have a quorum. Vice Chairman Judge Daniels, have you reviewed the minutes?
I have.
With that, we will entertain a motion on the minutes. We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? We have a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes say aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Minutes stand approved. Point of personal privilege. I want to recognize and welcome our newest members of the board. Thank you very much for joining us. Bill Cope, Mr. Johnson, Dr. Herron, thank you very much for joining us. This is not a difficult task, but it's an extremely important task because we're trying to assist those young people in our community who, I guess in some respects, have been forgotten, ignored, or disenfranchised, or maybe all three. Nonetheless, it's our job to give guidance to what I think is an outstanding department headed by Ms. Duke, to give them guidance and give them support, and I'm really pleased that you're here. And so the chair and all of us are interested in your input, your observations, to make Rutherford County the best it can be. And there's no way we can be a better county without providing mentorship and leadership to our young people. So with that, Dr. Herron, if you got any remarks or comments you would like to make, this would be a very appropriate time. You know how to turn your mic on? It pulls out.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
I just really wanted to say I am grateful to be here and looking forward to doing the work and being in a position to lead in mentorship, advocacy, and everything that they would need to be successful.
Thank you very much. Mr. Johnson, I want to put you on the spot.
Yes, sir. Likewise, I am just thrilled to find a way to learn as much as I can, and then also use my experience and talent, giftedness, or voice to shed some light on some resources and help any way we can provide to help our community.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Thank you. Bill Cope, my good friend.
Just like to say that I appreciate the opportunity and hopefully be able to bring some experience from the adult side over to what's already, as you said, Mayor, a fantastic staff with, I've been working with Director Duke and Leon for years, and I know they do a fantastic job, and I hope that I can support them in any way that I can.
I'm sure you will, and thank you very much. And on behalf of Ms. Maxwell, Dr. McDonald, and Judge Daniels, we welcome you and appreciate your input and your service. And with that, we'll move on. At this point, we're on the public comment section. I don't think we have anybody signed up for public comments. We don't, do we, Ms. Todd? Nobody signed up? Okay. Item 4, open positions. Ms. Duke?
We still have one part-time education assistant position available, one full-time female detention officer, one full-time temporary male detention officer. That's for a gentleman that's currently employed with us but who is serving some military time. And then we have a full-time corporal position that we will begin interviewing for, but we have not officially filled that yet.
Any questions for Ms. Duke? Thank you. Data report, item 5.
So on the table in front of you, this will be the one report that when I do have the items loaded into the tablet will not be on the tablet, that will always be on the table in front of you, just because some of the information potentially could be a safety, security, or confidentiality issue. What you have in front of you will be total population of the facility, the county that the young people who are detained are from, their ages, charges, and when their next court date may be. And as of this morning, we had 9 young people in the facility, 6 of those being from Rutherford County.
Judge Daniels, you're recognized.
It appears that 2 of these individuals are appearing in court today, and the charges look like something that might be able to be resolved. You can't tell from this as far as the detail of that. And one person will be coming before the court on the 11th. So this might change pretty dramatically. Is that right?
We have young people coming in and out daily, so that's why I generally try to print this and or have it compiled and have it printed the day of our meetings, because after 1 o'clock today, it could all change.
Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move to item 6, Educational Services Report.
So in front of you, you have the report for July. For the new folks that are on the board, this will probably make much more sense to you once you have an opportunity to come down and schedule a tour, talk to our educational staff, see kind of how we do things. This is just sort of a general idea of what the young people are, the subjects that they're taking while they're here. This does not include the special education students that the Board of Education handles, and it does not take into account the young folks who may be doing college classes online. But I'll happily answer any questions about this that you have.
Any questions regarding the Education Services Report? Seeing none, we will move to item 7, Contract Detention for Beds.
Okay, so the last time our contract for out-of-county youth was updated was in 2008 when we moved to our new facility. At the time, it eventually had an addendum to cover some PREA language, and also over the years we wanted to take a look at it and kind of clean up some of the language regarding not only the PREA information but some liability issues. What you have in front of you has gone through the Rutherford County Attorney's Office. He has looked at it. This is his most recent and I believe final draft that no longer has the addendum. The PREA language is included in this contract, this 3-page contract. What I would like to discuss today is the facility's rate. We have not changed our daily rate for out-of-county youth since 2008. Currently, the counties that contract with us pay $175 per day per child. As everyone is aware, the cost of everything has gone up. It's increased, everything from our food costs to our medical costs, supplies. I just think it's time for us to have a discussion as to whether we should or should not reconsider the daily rate. At this time, we are the newest facility in the state of Tennessee. So we have that going for us. I am comfortable with considering a rate of perhaps $200 a day per child. We can obviously discuss and debate that. Whatever we decide, if it does change and if it does go up, I would like to establish a effective date, perhaps giving these counties that do contract with us time to make those adjustments to their fiscal year budget in the next fiscal year. So potentially an effective date, because this has to go through the county process, which is usually maybe 2 months, give or take, unless there's more discussion. And then these counties also have to take it through their committee process. So July 1st would be a very easy, effective date for everyone, I think, but that's also up for discussion.
A little bit of clarification, if I may. So you're saying that this $175 per child per day rate is been in place now for 15 years?
Yes.
And you're advocating a $25 increase per child per day, correct?
Yes.
And you're telling us that your recommendation is for a July 1, 2024 implementation date?
Yes.
Can you tell us, Ms. Duke, what other facilities, juvenile detention facilities there are in Middle Tennessee that charge a similar rate, and/or what do they charge?
The last time I sent out a request for information from the other facilities, we at that time were the second highest in the state. I believe there was one facility that was charging $200 per day per child. The majority of the state is in the $150, $130 per day per child range. So I would like to stay within something obviously reasonable, but I do think it's time to reconsider the fee.
Understood. Judge Daniel, you're recognized.
In looking at the material that was sent out, there's two of these contracts. Is there any difference between the two of them, or is that just a duplication?
No, I believe that's just a duplication.
Okay. And secondly, I think it prudent for the taxpayers of Rutherford County to have a competitive rate across the state, and we charge what the market should bear for these facilities and for these services, because these counties that are getting the benefit of this are not having to pay for the fiscal structures and staff that we have. So I definitely think it should be raised.
Another question, if I may. Thank you, Judge Daniel. If I may, how often are these contracts renewed, or how often are they renewed?
Once they are established, they are not revisited unless there is a rate change, or unless a new county wants to. We have had, this has only happened once in 30 years, we had one county that wanted to establish a new contract because the county executive that had originally signed their original contract was no longer in service to that county, and they didn't think it would be an issue, but they wanted to update it just based on the signature. So once it's established, it doesn't.
So you're telling me, or telling the board, that this particular contract has no termination date?
That's correct. Well, I believe it's a 30-day either.
No, I guess there's a termination clause, but there's no expiration date to the contract.
That's correct.
Nick, you're nodding your head back there. I have a question for you. It was my understanding that the county could not enter into a contract without a termination date longer than 20 years or something like that, and I'm thinking off the top of my head, and the point of my question is my resistance as mayor to automatic contract renewals without the county being notified that a contract is being renewed. Does that make sense? You think we're okay because of the 30-day termination clause? Okay, thank you, sir. Any other questions? Dr. McDonald?
I did have one question related to indirect costs. I know the per diem, for the most part, focuses upon the direct delivery of services to these young people, correct? As opposed to indirect costs, administrative costs related to administering these contracts for other counties. Is there some way that we can, as we're looking at adjusting these rates, to look at indirect cost?
What I can tell you is that the last time that the county finance department worked the numbers on what it actually costs per child, whether it's a Rutherford County child or an out-of-county child, it was because I'm probably going to not have the exact terminology, but because the building was so new, the cost of the building was still part of those figures, and even at that time, it was, I believe, in excess of $250 per day, and that was so far out of the range that everyone else was charging that we just simply didn't feel comfortable. And I don't think that you know, in corrections, that you're ever going to be able to fully get compensation for what it's not something where you're ever going to definitely make money. And if you break even, I think it would be amazing, but I don't think it's realistic.
Thank you. Dr. Herron, did you have a question? I thought I heard you over there.
Quick question, just would there be additional, like, whether indirect or direct services added to this increase?
I don't know that I completely understand what you're asking, but any, and probably once you come down and take a tour and we talk about how our policies work, with example, the way we handle medical and food, I think the short answer for you is no. It just is simply the flat fee that covers what we provide the youth while they're with us. Anything else, as far as transportation costs or, you know, doctor visits, or all of that is just included in this fee per day.
Thank you.
I do have one more question. It's more of a curiosity question, Lynn. What constitutes a day? What's the definition of a day?
We have currently we have a software system that is calculating that for us. Any part of a 24-hour period can constitute a day. So if the young person is only with us for 3 hours, that's a day.
Okay. I'm just curious. Thank you. Any other questions? Since this does involve money, if we're going to move this to the county commission, this would require a motion, a second, and a roll call vote. Yes, Judge Daniel, you're recognized.
Are we talking about a motion to deal with a sum certain, as Lynn has indicated?
That was that was her recommendation. If there's an since there's no motion before the board, we will entertain an alternative motion. But her recommendation is to go from 175 to 200, and then of course that would then have to go, leave this body and go ultimately before the full commission for approval. But you're free to make any motion you like, Judge.
I'm just wondering if that is enough based on what she just said about the financial impact that each of these days has for the county, for these individuals.
Yeah, and I share your concern, because it's interesting enough, I was thinking the same thing, which is why I particularly asked what other facilities we're doing. And but at the same time, I know my position on something like this is that the county is not in the business of generating revenue. It's in the business to provide services to our community that we believe are necessary to the community. If there's an opportunity for us to mitigate those expenses, then we have an obligation to do so, but we're not in the for-profit business. So, and I'm not saying that's what you're saying at all. Quite the contrary. I'm just saying I want us to be careful when we start down this road. That's all.
The point I'm trying to make is these services are being provided for other counties that have not gone to the expense of creating their own detention center. So I consider that different from our citizens.
It is. I agree.
I don't know if this helps or muddies it. There is no limitation on the amount of facilities that a county can contract with. And if we did not have a facility in our county, it would be my recommendation to the juvenile court or to the juvenile probation office to contract with as many as they could possibly establish a contract with. There are some counties that in their daily rate do include more services than we currently offer. If you if we detain a young person from Montgomery County, as an example, and that young person has doctor's appointments, not something that is emergent, but just a doctor's appointment, we do not transport that young person. Montgomery County is required to come, use their energies and their times and their sheriff's office to do that. There are some facilities that do provide transportation with their own, within their own facility. So there are several issues like that that we haven't talked about, but that might be something that you should consider when making this decision.
Bill, you're recognized.
Do we have to make a decision on that this month, or could we possibly put it off until next month? That would give us all a little time to do a little research.
I think because Ms. Duke's recommendation was to go from 175 to 200 with an implementation date of July 1st, 2024, this body has a couple of months before we have to decide to do anything. So we can, if there's a motion to defer for further discussion, certainly the chair would entertain that motion as well.
I'm not sure I can make the motion being the first.
You most certainly can. You have equal stand. The only person in the board that can't make the motion is the chair.
Then I will make that motion to defer until next month, and
Right.
then that will give us enough time to.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of deferring to next month's meeting, say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We'll take it up again at the next meeting. Judge Daniel, you're recognized.
In this month's time frame, can we look at and find out what other rates are and what our own people have determined would be the cost that we are incurring?
Absolutely. I think we have, again, I think we have a good 30 to 60 days where we can have this conversation, and it's not going to, I don't think, Lynn, it's going to hurt at all to spend a couple of months on this before we have to make a decision.
The only thing that I would add is that although the finance director has changed, the last time that I did speak to finance about it, it was a very detailed and time-consuming effort to provide those numbers, so I don't know if I don't know what their scheduling is right now, but the finance department may need more than 30 days. But that's also one of the reasons why I went ahead and brought this forward, so that we have time. But I can definitely bring the information regarding the other facilities across the state by next month, and then I'll get with finance and ask that they do the best that they can on those.
Lynn, if you'll do that, at least it gives us an opportunity to do a little bit of comparative analysis, which I think is always helpful.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you. Without further objection, without any more discussion, we'll go to line item number 8, the Houston County contract.
Okay, so Houston County, this is the existing contract that has that addendum that we talked about. This is not for a new fee. This is for the $175. We did tell them while they were going through this process that this has to go through the approval process, and that potentially there would be another contract coming their way if we decided to increase the rates. But at this time, they would like to go ahead and get on our approved county list, establish a contract, knowing that potentially in the future, these rates would be going up and there would be more contracts coming their way. So this is a new county who we have not contracted with at the current rate of $175.
Questions? Seeing none, we'll move to item 9. The next board meeting conflicts with Labor Day. Dr. McDonald.
Patriots Day.
I think that this may actually be a moot point now, because the Monday before is Labor Day weekend. And so unless the board prefers otherwise, I'd like to withdraw whatever consideration we were looking at for Patriot Day.
Thank you, Dr. McDonald. So where
If
does
we
that,
d- if
where,
we don't- if we
withdrawing your
don't-
motion, where does that,
Right, if we
your
don't,
recommendation? I'm sorry.
originally we were scheduled to meet on, I believe it's September 4th, which is a Monday, which is Labor Day. And so if we were going to make the adjustment, the following Monday is Patriot Day, which is 11th.
I do remember now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any objection to meeting on September 11th, at September 11th, isn't it, Bill? Because that's when we're having our Correctional Work Center meeting as well, is it not? Is there any objection to September 11th at this time? I think we probably need a formal motion in a second, and let's vote on that since we are changing the date, and we do need to have a public, public notice.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we change or adjust the date for our September meeting from September 4th, 2023 to September 11th, 2023.
Second, do we have a second? Ms. Maxwell has a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The next scheduled meeting of the JDC will be September 11th at this time, 1:30 in this facility. Item number 10.
Mayor,
Yes, sir, Judge.
for our new members,
Yes.
could the secretary state what the dates are for our meetings for the rest of the year?
Sheila, if you would, please. Thank you.
We have September the 11th, October the 9th, November the 13th, and December the 11th. And each one of those meets at 1 o'clock.
Now, Judge, I saw you feverishly writing that down over there, but that's not what you asked. You asked on behalf of the new members, yet you were writing down, so I want you to know the chair noticed that.
I'm challenged from time to time on this date.
Judge Daniels, aren't we all? Oh, my goodness. Item number 10, meeting agendas and public comments. Dr. McDonald.
During the the last legislative session of the Tennessee legislature, they passed a law basically making some changes to public comment, and I believe our county attorney is here, and we've had an opportunity, I believe, Lynn, to maybe look at this, and my concern was just that, as I read it initially, the focus was on county legislative bodies, and with us being a creature of that body, I didn't know how this impacted this committee.
My understanding of that particular new piece of legislation, because we had a similar issue this morning with, in the CDC, was, and the CCRC, a number of boards and commissions that I chair or preside over or attend, is that it is all legislative bodies and boards and commissions and related to that. So this falls under that. Nick, is that your understanding of the law as well, that it's not just the county commission and its committees, but all those? Yes, if you'll come forward, please, sir. And without objection, we're going to go out and hear from County Attorney Nick Christensen.
Afternoon, Commission. Just briefly, so there were two different laws that were passed. One dealt with agendas and posting them within so many hours, 48 hours prior to a meeting. The other set of legislation dealt with public comment periods. So starting with the first, with agendas, we don't have to worry about that because that is only applicable to the county commission. Now, for what it's worth, I believe the agenda for this board still is posted well in advance of the meeting, and it's on the county's website. And so we nonetheless comply with the law, even though specifically we're not required to do so with respect to the agendas. For the public comment period, yes, the legislature did make some sweeping, broad changes to the requirements for public comment. As you all implemented, I guess is when you all, earlier this year, you instituted a public comment period. And essentially what the law said is that for any board, committee, commission that would be governed by the open meetings laws, that you have to reserve a designated public comment period somewhere on the agenda. Great, we already do that. So we're already complying with that law. That law does allow for certain restrictions that can be placed on the time limits of public comment, 3 minutes per person. You can specify how you have to sign up for those public comment periods, and the commission recently passed a resolution applicable to their boards and committees to that effect. I believe your director has got some suggestions that if you are in accord with, she might want to implement, and would be as simple as putting it in the form of a motion. It's not terribly restrictive, but it gives some ability and direction for her on how to handle the public comment period to get it ready for you guys. I'll be back here if you've got any other questions. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Nick. Without objection, we'll go back into session. Dr. McDonald, did you get your questions answered?
Yes.
Perfect. Any other questions or comments regarding the meeting agenda and its public comments period?
I would like to share what I would like to put at the bottom of our agenda. We have our ADA statement on here, and I would like to, and if it needs to be, I would like for it to read, individuals desiring to provide public comment may do so by contacting the Juvenile Detention Center at 615-898-7954, option 4, at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. You will be required to give your name, address, and discussion topic. Those signed up are allowed 3 minutes to talk.
Judge Daniel, you're recognized.
Would there be somebody to accept those calls on Sunday?
Would there be a way for them to leave a recorded message?
No, that would not be an option if they call on Sunday.
Maybe then the notice have to take place on the Friday before the stated meeting.
Yes, that's what we should do. That's a great idea.
Any other discussions or comments? Without objection, we will make those changes, Lynn. Finally, other business. So when this board was first organized, one of the very, very first things, I would assume, I think the very first thing we did, Judge, we went on a tour of the facility, did we not? And I can tell you that it is incredibly enlightening and informational, and I would strongly encourage the new board members to do just that. And I'm going to speak on behalf of Leon and Ms. Duke. It would be probably helpful for them if the three of you got together and threw some times and dates together so Ms. Duke could share, or Leon could share that tour with you together, because I can tell you there's a bit of synergy and questions and follow-up questions that you get when doing it together. Of course, that's not a requirement. That would be ridiculous. But if your schedules can allow you guys to do it together, that would be great. I think you'll find it incredibly beneficial as a board member. Is there any other business?
May I also add that for the new members, Dr. Herron picked up her juvenile detention SOP prior to today's meeting, and I have given you some of the same information that are in the two new board members' binders. You not only have our current SOP, but you have some of the information that the established members have already received, which was shared by the county attorney, which was the requirement for open meetings and some information that you might want to take a look at as far as what you can discuss and not discuss. I've also shared the JDC educational services and programming information, our life skills topics, our business cards, so that you can get in touch with either myself or Captain Caesar, and also how to get to, on the county website, what is generally known as SharePoint, where you can reference old meetings, old agendas, and information if you want to do any research on previous topics. And then just to follow up on what Chairman said, just if you are interested in taking a tour, just reach out to myself or Captain Caesar, and we will happy to either schedule that individually or as a group, whatever makes everyone happy.
And my apologies to Captain Caesar. I referred to him as Leon. I should not have done that. My apologies. Any other questions or comments?
I just have one comment. I was looking at the back of our packet, and was very moved by the letter that you included there from a juvenile who apparently spent quite some time with us. And it just goes to prove how much you all really care about these kids, and how this obviously sounds like someone, you touched their life and changed their life forever, and hopefully they are on a good path now. But thank you. It's nice to see, we see the numbers, we see their ages, we see what they did, but we don't know what happens to them. And I would like to think that this is the outcome that we want and that we receive every time. But thank you all so much, and thank you for putting this in here. It almost brought me to tears.
Well, thank you. This young man actually asked, requested through his attorney, through juvenile court, prior to him turning 18, if he could spend the next year with us instead of going to the adult facility, because he had not been sentenced yet. So not only was he comfortable as a juvenile, but he requested to stay with us. He was in college classes online. He was not a problem at all. He followed rules, and the agreement was as long as he continued to focus on his education, making some good decisions about that he could stay until he turned 19. So he requested and stayed an extra year with us that he didn't have to, because he was very comfortable where he was.
I'm sure he will be. Any other questions? Without objection, we stand adjourned.